Well, because when you get drafted, that group you'll walk in and think like, oh, like how good are we? We just got drafted. Like all our mates think we're like legends. And I remember Mick just like sort of whacked us straight between the eyes. And he wasn't trying to scare us or anything. He was just telling us facts. He said in 4 years, statistically, 3 of the 9 will be left, 6 of you will be gone. And you look around the room and no one's thinking, oh, well, I'm going to be one of the 6. I'm definitely one of the 3. I think he was almost spot on that after 4 years there was me, Daisy and Alan Tuvey left and the rest of the guys had been traded or delisted. So day one to get that, you sort of realise how quickly you got to flip into this is what we've got to do. And you know, while it's amazing getting drafted, your career can quickly diminish. After my first season, I had it pretty interrupted. I got drafted and I think 2 weeks later I had glandular fever, so I missed sort of 2 months, and then by the time I got back, the season had started and I was in the VFL and played, I think 7 or 8 games there. And at the end of that season, I sort of made a vow to myself that I never wanted to play VFL again because I wanted to make a mark in the AFL side. And yeah, I sought some feedback from senior players about the best way to do that. David Butterfin at the time, who was our head of fitness, and they recommended jumping in with Paul Licuri and shadowing him. He was the hardest trainer, the hardest worker at the football club, and they said if you're going to go anywhere, he's a guy who's made himself into a dual Copeland Trophy winner, a star of the competition, so a guy to follow. And I asked Licker if anything he does, grab me. I want to do, no matter what he does, where he does it, grab me. I'll shadow you and I'll do it. And definitely moments that I regretted asking him to do that for me. And but he just taught me about how hard you've got to work and how focused you've got to be. And I learned a lot in the season between 2006-2007, and then funnily enough, the 2007 season was the one where I played sort of pretty much every game, I think. And by the end of that season, thought I'd sort of cemented myself in the senior side at that stage. And I think I've always been a guy who has been motivated by team success and achieving that. And very early on in my career, 2007, we played in a prelim final, and I just couldn't believe how amazing finals football was compared to the regular season. Well, Alan Richardson and Gavin Brown, when I first started, had this great saying, and every footballer hears it, but just don't ride the roller coaster. And because you're going to have highs and you're going to have lows. All the great players in our game are the ones that when they have a bad game, it's still a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. And I thought, that's a pretty good way to look at it, because it's just not possible to be, 10 out of 10 every week or 9 out of 10. So when you are having those bad games, how can you still contribute? And I get big kicks out of team success, not so much individual success. So I think and I've always been a firm believer, but doing the 2007 pre-season with Licker, with Licker, it just proved to me that this game isn't a talent game. It's whoever's willing to work the hardest gets rewards. And that 2007 season, I didn't have any outstanding games, but I had a lot of consistent games. And I just thought I'm training well, I'm preparing well. If I can do that for a long period of time, it gives me a good chance to have a good career.
Pendlebury kicked the first, he's kicked the most recent, he put him in front and he does it again.
On the weekend, for example, first quarter, don't get near the football, and I do the post-game interview on the couch, and they're sort of, do you get flustered and things like that. And I remember just saying, I've got a very simple process. I think football's a simple game, and I've got a simple process around what I need to do to play my role for the side, and I just come back to that, and I don't ever get away from it because I know it works, and that's all I need to focus on. So the other one I think too is you probably touch on as well, but Swanee, a guy that I looked up to when I played with, because he was sort of 1 or 2 years ahead of me in where he was at AFL, and you look at him and you probably say the same things, like not too much stuff got to him. He always had a laugh out on the field. He always remembered what people said, and I enjoyed, when he kicked goals and he'd rub his tummy because people would say he was fat or anything like that. But I think the only person that would ever beat Swanee on a game was himself if he ever got too worried, which never really happened. And when you're coming up and you've got a guy like that performs as well as he does, and that's his demeanour, you tend to follow that because you want to perform and do the things that he was doing. I think it was 2007. It was midweek, it would have been a Wednesday. We trained the next day and we played Saturday. This is pre-season, mind you. And Swanee just said, do you want to come have a feed at Crown? And I was pretty young. And so yeah, we'll go have a feed at Crown, and get to dinner, and we're at Nobu at Crown, or one of the restaurants there anyway. And we sit down and it's like, the waiter's like, do you want a drink? And I was about to say, like, can I grab like a Diet Coke or whatever? Swanee's like, yeah, we'll grab 2 beers, please. So, no, this is the first time I ever drank midweek ever. And I was like, oh, well, the talk is like you can have a couple of wines throughout the week or midweek, and then the waiter come over again, and Swanee's like, we'll grab 2 beers and a bottle of sake. I was like, never heard of what sake is in my life, and they pour these little shot glasses out, and I was like, Swanee's like, oh, just bang it down, mate, and I was like, bang it down. I didn't realise it was hot. It's nearly burnt me the whole way down, having a beer, and yeah, one thing led to another, and we had quite a few beers that night, and as we were about to leave dinner, it was like, pay the bill. It nearly blew my head off just seeing how much the bill was in the first place. So I had Swanee a bit of money that night, and then it's like, all right, let's get going. He goes, oh, we'll just head down to the Velvet Bar for 1 or 2 before we head home. And I just remember thinking, got in the cab, I was pretty drunk, had training the next day. I remember getting into the club, and Ben Johnson grabbed me, and he's like, I know where you were last night and what you did. And he's like, I never want you to do that again. Yeah, and then he goes, Jono's like, you know, you're playing Saturday. He's like, if you don't play well, like, basically he's gonna smash me. So he's like, you need to play well, otherwise. So yeah, I ended up playing all right that night, but yeah, that was yeah, an interesting dinner that I had with Swanee, and we had many dinners at the right time after that, but yeah, that was a good story that people probably wouldn't expect to hear from me. Sort of the captain's record, I guess you never really think that's going to be a record that you try to break, want to break, because when you start, you just want to play. Certainly though, when I was young, I was ambitious, and I thought, you know, I could break that record if I do everything right. I could play the most games at the club, but then you sort of forget about it pretty quickly. Like you walk in, you see the leaderboards, and you think, oh, I could get that. Like, play 15 years. Like, what young kid doesn't think they'll play 15 years? And probably from game 200 onward, you realise how big it is to get there. You know, there's ebbs and flows, and obviously 2018 with my back was at times pretty challenging. I thought, you know, I might only have 1 more year left after this with how that was travelling at the time, and yeah, so incredibly proud to go past Tony on Monday, and you know, I think the game that we play against Port's going to be awesome too. You know, a big game to achieve something like that, and yeah, I know there's many people though that I'll thank. I don't feel like it's as much about me. It's more about the people that have helped me along the way. And one thing that a milestone game does is a lot of those people reach out to you, and it gives me a chance to, you know, reach back out to them and say thank you for what you've done, because it's not just me, and giving me confidence and lessons, and that's just not from the moment I've walked in, you know, Collingwood's door. It's from the moment, you know, I grew up in Sale, and all those people have helped me along the way, and, you know, helped shape me into the person I am today. I owe a lot of people for this one, so I feel like the ticket request for a game next year might be through the roof.